Popping out projects fast is not always a good thing. Let's talk tips for slowing down so you can enjoy your sewing even more. If you've been sewing for a while, it's very easy to get into a rhythm, just putting one project out after another. There's a lot of people that I follow online who somehow have a new project out every week. Even for me, I'm jelly because I don't sew that fast. But it made me wonder, if we're putting out projects so quickly, are we really taking the time to savor and enjoy the sewing process? So this video is going to go into questions to ask yourself if you're going too fast, if you're feeling the churn of sewing, and how you can slow that process down so you really fall in love with it all over again. Ask yourself, why do you feel the need to rush the project? Seems pretty straightforward, but it's not something that we actively ask ourselves in our day-to-day. It's very easy for us to just get into, the rushing rhythm when it comes to most things in our lives, let alone sewing. And if we're not actively questioning, hey, why are you rushing this? It's very easy for us to get burnt out and not even realize what's going on. For me, I've seen this happen with a lot of the videos that I used to do here for the channel, where at a certain point, I would be leaving work, coming home, pulling out the sewing machine and just churning stuff out. And it was to the point to where the project started to blur together. Nothing was really special anymore. I really didn't care. And by the time that I was just getting rid of them by donating them to the thrift, there was no sweat off my back. And I realized that I was getting into this rhythm where everything was rushed, so nothing mattered anymore. Once you have an answer to the why, you can start to put parameters around how you want to approach your project. So for example, you might remove the deadline from the project so you don't have to worry about striking a calendar deadline. You might decide, hey, with this extra time, I'm going to be able to put in a specific sewing technique that's a little bit more complicated. At the end of the day, you want to slow down that process and not feel stressed up against that deadline or up against those parameters that are causing you to rush. You want to be able to bake in a little bit more of that time that you're really going to appreciate with the project itself. The next thing to ask yourself is if you're cutting corners just to go fast. Now, this one's a tricky one because cutting corners sometimes involves skipping steps and taking shortcuts. And don't get me wrong, I think shortcuts are fine. But shortcuts are fine in moderation. It's really easy to get kind of into this churn of shortcuts and be like, cool, I'm just going to cut this corner and everything will be fine. But then there's never a reversal or a return to doing it the correct way. Shortcuts on top of shortcuts on top of shortcuts, especially if you're trying to go fast, end up coming into some dire consequences. So this one's near and dear to me because I tend to go slow or to not take shortcuts a majority of the time to my detriment. So definitely put an asterisk next to this one because, it can also go awry. But for example, I see a lot of people, take a shortcut when it comes to stay stitching. Something super basic, super simple. They're like, I don't need to do it. It'll be fine. Let's just keep going. But then it's not fine, right? They'll not stay stitch something and then the neck gets pulled out of alignment and then they sew it together and things don't start lining up, or they have to kind of force things to fit together. And then you start to see it in pictures and videos that the neckline does not lay down straight because they skip that one tiny little step. And obviously it's a tiny example, but just think about what are the corners that are being cut in order to go fast. This is a reminder to ask ourselves, why are we sewing? For so many of us, it's to not just make something that's good enough with shortcuts, right? It's so that we actually have something that makes us feel like $1,000,000, something that we've made by hand. So just kind of ponder on that as you're going through these shortcuts. It's like, is it just to get it out the door quickly, or is this an actual shortcut that I feel has no impact on my enjoyment of what I'm making? If you have found yourself cutting corners before, let me know down in the comments. What do you feel comfortable cutting with no reservations, or what are the corners that you just don't feel comfortable cutting? While you're down there, hit like and hit subscribe if you haven't already. The next thing to ask yourself is this a project that is worth stressing about? That's a very basic question, but taking that step back can really help, because when it comes to stress, it can play some weird mind games on everybody, and then, you know, one stress on top of another on top of another, it compounds and it's exponential. So I think a good example that I've had in my own life was in a video that we did for the channel, where I was trying to get it done fast. I was trying to get it done for a deadline. I was just like rushing it. And as I was working on it, I was becoming more and more stressed out. Are we going to meet the deadline? The stress is harder than I thought. Like, all of this was compounding on top of each other. And I got to the point to where I had made the entire outer red and go of this beautiful dress, and then I cut right into the bodice front in a super obvious place. And that was a moment where I'm like, okay, I need to take a step back. I need to take a step back and take a moment to breathe and to like just let myself be in this moment and actually ask myself, am I enjoying any of this right now? Because I just cut into the stress and I'm super stressed and I'm actually supposed to be enjoying this process. How often are we stressing over something and end up making careless mistakes? If you're finding yourself doing this, it's a really great opportunity to take a step back, get a glass of water, go walk around the block, maybe text a friend, and just take a second away from the project so that you can look at it with fresh eyes and reassess where you're at. At the end of the day, none of us want to be rushing our projects and sap out all the enjoyment and love for what we're doing. If these tips have inspired you in any way to start sewing, go ahead and click on either of these two videos, which will continue to inspire you. Again, thank you so much for watching. Like, share, subscribe, all the places, all the stuff. Subscribe on Instagram, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.